Now we bring you a discussion on polling in Chhattisgarh and Mizoram assembly elections. The participants are Vijay Kranti, political analyst, and Neelab Srivastav, journalist.
Polling for the first phase of assembly elections in Chhattisgarh coming to an end, and also on the same day we have the 40 seats of Mizoram going to polls on a single day itself. The second phase of Chhattisgarh polls are scheduled to be held on 17th of November, 70 more seats to go. Also, today, one of the seats in Nagaland, Tapi assembly seat of Nagaland, that also went for polls as part of a bypoll that was supposed to be held there. And if we talk about the polling percentage in Chhattisgarh, as of 1 p.m., the update that we have is 60.92 percentages, around 61 to 62 percentage of polling that has happened. Largely, these seats, 20 seats that went to polls today, are largely Naxal affected or LWE, left-wing extremism affected seats in the south of Chhattisgarh, Bastar region. In Mizoram, as per the updates received till 3 p.m., we have a voting percentage of 70%. Now, if we talk about the number of people in fray in Chhattisgarh, 223 candidates, including 25 women. Prominent faces among them, BJP leader, former Chief Minister Raman Singh, State PCC President, Congress leader Deepak Baj, Deputy Speaker Santra Netamand. Women voters outnumber men in 16 of the assembly segments in these 20 seats, around 5,304 polling stations here, and almost multiple companies of security, central security forces. Mr. Vijay, the kind of campaigning that is now peaking, because there still are the other states to go for polls. How do you see this polling in this region of Chhattisgarh, which is always seen from a prism of security?
I think whatever news we are getting right now from Chhattisgarh, that is very encouraging, because I have been watching the politics of not only Chhattisgarh, but all those states where Naxalism or Maoism, terrorism of the communist parties has been dominant for last many decades. Right from 1960s, we have been seeing the Naxalbari movement or Naxalite movement, which is openly sponsored by China. And their local agents are the Communist Party workers of Marxist-Leninist groups. And this time we have seen that in Chhattisgarh, percentage of voting in those areas. Today, the polling was in 20 of overall 90 seats of Chhattisgarh. Out of these 20 seats, the 10 seats are those which are dominantly Naxal affected. And there were days when the police or even school teachers could not go to attend their duty in these Naxal controlled areas. So there was no question of organizing elections or any normal civic activity. But this time, for the last 7-8 years, the NDA government had made it a point to wipe out Naxalism from India. And I think they have succeeded to a very good extent, because now earlier it used to be from Nepal to Andhra Pradesh. It was a red wall which was controlled by the Naxalites or Maoists. There was a name from Pashupati to Tirupati. Pashupati Nath is area in Nepal, and down in Indian south is Tirupati. So between this, all those states, whether it was Bihar or West Bengal or Chhattisgarh or Madhya Pradesh or Bihar, West Bengal, Telangana, Odisha, a large part of these states was controlled by those terrorists, the communist terrorists called Maoists. There used to be elections, but there was hardly any polling in those areas, which were controlled by them. But this time when women, you just now said that women of Chhattisgarh from these constituencies have come out in larger number than men. That shows the confidence returning to the voter and to the citizen of these areas which were earlier controlled by the communist terrorists. So I think this 59% plus figure of 10 or 20 constituencies of Chhattisgarh, this time it reflects a qualitative and quantitative change which has happened in these states, and it reflects that in coming years India can see the end of Naxal terrorism, the communist terrorism in India, and as the Home Minister of India has already announced that we will see the end of this left-oriented terrorism very soon. So I think today's polling is a kind of endorsement to that claim or challenge of the government. And we can hope that democracy is going to return in full swing back to those areas which were deprived of this freedom for last many decades because of the terrorism of those communist parties. So it's a welcome figure which we are seeing today.
Right. Chhattisgarh also has the second phase of polling. But before we go to it, The figures from Mizoram are in till 3 p.m. As I said, 70% of the polling has happened. And if we go into the data and figures, the polling began at 7 a.m. Around party in power in the state. Mizo National Front, the Indian National Congress, the Zoram People's Movement, the Aam Aadmi Party, and the Bharatiya Janata Party, all in fray there. There are 27 independent candidates also. The state also shares international borders with Myanmar and Bangladesh. So the kind of campaign that is held there, Mr. Vijay, the kind of campaign and the kind of political movement that has been there for these elections, your comments on this?
When elections were announced for Mizoram, there were fears that because there is a very long trend of violence and very serious violence is going on in neighboring Manipur for a very long time. And there is a very big interaction of the communities involved on both sides in Manipur and Mizoram, because there are a lot of this main fight which is going on between Kukis and Maitis, a lot of common between these two states. And over past few months, there has been a very large number of those people who were affected by violence or related to it have migrated to Mizoram. So there were people who had fears that the elections may not be peaceful in Mizoram this time, or the people may not come out in good numbers to use their voting power. But it's a very positive sign, as we are seeing figures since morning, that percentage of people who have come out to vote is nowhere less than normal of what used to happen in Mizoram. So I see it as a positive sign that the violence of Manipur would not affect the voting process, election process, democratization process of Mizoram. One thing is there, it's very interesting to see that the Chief Minister, Mr. Joram Thanga, his position is very interesting. He's a member of the NDA, but in this election, he has not severed his ties with BJP. But at the same time, he is not joining hands openly with BJP in this election. So he is keeping both the options in his hands. If he doesn't get majority, then he can hope or claim BJP's support. If he gets majority on his own, then he can claim that he can run independently. But it seems, because seeing the various political groups which are in fray and their power so far as assessed by the observers and media, it seems that no single party may be in a position to get full majority. So ultimately they will have to have new alignments. And Mr. Joram Thanga, he is keeping both options ready with him. So he is in a good shape, still looks better. But as far as BJP is concerned, and BJP is joining hands with, not openly, but otherwise with Mizoram People's Movement. So there are good hopes that this group may get a reasonably good number of seats. And there are people who believe that BJP may, even if it doesn't get, of course, it's not going to get majority, it looks clear, but it may be a kingmaker. So that option is there. But in this election, there is another interesting element that Aam Aadmi Party has also joined the fray, and it is there with, I think, 4 seats. And one more element which is very interesting is that Mizoram is one of those states where participation of women in politics, and especially in electoral politics, has been almost zero. You can imagine that over past 50 years, the total number of women who could become MLA has been only 4. So this doesn't happen in other parts of India. But yes, this time we see that there are 15 candidates. So we can see that the number of women may be better. And BJP has promised that if it is a part of the ruling elite and ruling groups and it can influence, it will make it 33% participation of women, reservation for women in the assembly. So I think this election is going to be very interesting for the women of Mizoram, which is a patriarchal society. So let us see what happens. In this election in Mizoram, corruption, drug abuse and its smuggling, and development of infrastructure and unemployment. These are 4 major issues which are going to impact the voters' mind. So people like me hope that in spite of really sad, unfortunate violence in the very much neighborhood in Manipur, Mizoram people are going to come out with a verdict which is more of the nature pro-governance rather than emotional issues. Let us hope that the voter takes decision on the basis of these issues.
The political discourse, especially in Chhattisgarh, we have had the first phase of polling, second remains. has now turned towards the allegations and counter allegations of against some charges on a betting app and its proceeds. So while the Chief Minister, Mr. Baghel, has said that these agencies are doing this, making allegations at a time when the code of conduct as it is in force, the opposition party, Bharatiya Janata Party, has said that these are corruption cases and there is no need to stay on this. So the kind of discourse has moved on this. How do you see this panning out for the next phase of elections in Chhattisgarh?
This issue has two sides. Number one is whether the justice delivery system is allowed to function during the course of election or not. And the answer is very clear. The constitution will never stop the justice delivery system from functioning, because that is always independent of elections and the electoral politics. And the second issue is that what I see, people like me see that these assembly elections, the political parties are not taking these elections simply as ordinary elections or a struggle to win one state or other state. For almost every political party, especially the opposition, they are taking it as a question of, as a struggle for final survival, because they are treating this election as a kind of semi-final to the Lok Sabha election, which will happen next year in May, which is very close by now. So many political parties are now hoping that these elections may provide a last chance for them to assure the voter of India that they are also in the reckoning. So that is why these parties are very desperate. Of course, as far as desperation is concerned, I think every single party, without naming them, is appearing to be desperate to win these elections. That's why we see that there is so much of aggression, there is so much of shouting and counter allegations, which is a part of democracy. I don't see it something as very wrong or bad, but yes, it is sad. This is what is happening. And I think we should take it as a part of the game. This game of blames and counter blames is integral part of elections. And if it is happening right now, let it happen. There is nothing wrong in it. But as far as the justice delivery system, whether it is going and reaching houses of people whom they think have been involved in corruption, especially of money or drugs, I think that is within their rights. Whether political parties question it or not, the justice delivery system is not going to stop, and it should not stop only because there is election. So it can't be a holiday.
Before the time runs out, one short question for the last 1 minute I'll put across, Mr. Vijay, is about the political campaign in other states. So this is essentially against the freebies, against the guarantees. One party claiming it to be freebies, against someone countering it by saying that these are guarantees. Also in the perspective of the general elections that are going to come in 2024. So how do you see this campaign now for other states panning out like?
As a voter and a concerned citizen of India, I would say that this new trend which has barged into Indian politics of offering freebies, this thing free, this much cash, I think this is a tendency which should stop. We have seen many countries like Venezuela or Brunei. All these countries were at one stage very rich countries because of their resources. But the moment they went on going for political freebies, they are lost now. Their democracy is in danger, their progress is in danger, their sovereignty is in danger. The Indian politicians, I think, should look at those lessons and they should learn. This game of freebies should stop. But anyhow, that is one opinion. It's not necessary that everybody agrees with it, or at least politicians will agree.
So we see from here how the campaign pans up. Still 4 more states to go, including Chhattisgarh for the second phase. Thank you so much for sharing your points, Mr. Vijay.
Thank you.
You are listening to a discussion on polling in Chhattisgarh and Mizoram assembly elections. The participants were Vijay Kranti, political analyst, and Neelab Srivastav, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of Akashvani. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may share your feedback about this program through email at airnsttalks@gmail.com or WhatsApp on 92890 94044.